What is a recall election? A lot of people still are confused about it. We brought on an election law expert, Jessica Levinson. She's been on the show several times before to kind of break it down in simple terms for everyone. You're watching Live Now from Fox. I'm Daytona Everett, joined by Jessica Levinson. She is a familiar face here on our show, talking everything election law, specifically in California. Jessica, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, absolutely. A big day here in California.
Huge day. So it's interesting having talked about this because it's a national headline. Everyone knows that California recall is going on right now, but people are confused. What is a California recall? What is a recall election? Can we dive into that?
Yeah, not every state has this thing called a recall. So recall is part of a system that's called direct democracy. And what that basically means is direct democracy allows the people to bypass legislatures and their elected lawmakers and either use the initiative process, in which case they create a new law, or the referendum, in which case they repeal a law without going through the legislative process, or the recall. They say to an elected official, you know what, your time here is done before their term is up. And that's ultimately what we're deciding today in California, whether or not we're going to recall Governor Newsom, which is basically means, are we going to fire him before his term is up? And it's just a way of California and the citizens of California being able to say, there's such a big problem here that we don't even want to wait until the next election cycle. We're uncomfortable with you serving out the rest of your term. And I think the reason it feels confusing to people is because, one, it doesn't look like a typical election on the ballot. And two, again, not every state has this.
Yeah, so people who have already gotten their ballots, a lot of people have already mailed in their ballots. They're getting two questions, right? Do you want to recall Gavin Newsom? And if so, who do you want to choose? And there's a large amount of candidates on the opposite end of this. So what should they know? I mean, of course, a lot of them have already voted, but those who maybe are voting in person today, what should they know about this process?
So what people should know is that exactly what you said, that the first question is, do you want Governor Newsom to keep his job or not? Or phrase it a different way, do you want to recall him, in which case he loses his job? Or are you against the recall, in which case he keeps his job? And then that second question only kicks in really if Governor Newsom is in fact recalled, if enough people, meaning 50.001% of the people, vote yes on the recall. And that is a list of 45 different candidates. And again, if Governor Newsom lives to fight another day, we never get to what happened in that list. But you could see a situation, I don't think it's likely, you could see a situation where, let's say, 49% of people vote no on the recall, meaning the recall passes. 51% say yes, Governor Newsom should be recalled. But then the person who becomes the next governor gets like 7, 8, 9% of the vote. And I think for people that feels strange, because 49% of the people want him to keep his job.
Right.
But they lost in question number one. And so the 7% of people who really want maybe Larry Elder are the ones who pick the next governor.
I find this interesting though. So if that first question, if we don't get past that, we'll never know who won that second question.
So it's not that we'll never know so much as it won't ever be relevant.
Yeah, right. Okay. So, a recall election, though, I want to look at the history of this. It's not common, right?
It's not common. So in California and in most states, we really implemented these systems of direct democracy back around the 1910s. And in California, we created direct democracy in 1911. Our governor, a reform governor named Hiram Johnson, said, okay, for a whole host of reasons, the legislature's kind of crooked. They're in the pocket of the railroads. And so we need the people to be able to go directly to the ballot box, make laws, repeal laws, and recall candidates. And we have a really generous system of direct democracy in California. In fact, in my opinion, too generous. But even with our very generous system in California, it still is hard to qualify a recall for the ballot. You still need a certain percentage of signatures from the electorate. It's based on how many people voted in the last gubernatorial election. The only reason we're talking about this is because a bunch of months ago, there was a state court judge that said, you know what, proponents of the recall, you get more time to gather signatures. Without that additional time, this would not have qualified. We would not be having this conversation.
Yeah, but we are having this conversation right now, and it's a real concern for a lot of people who are out in California. Other voters coming out excited about this, the possibility of maybe a Republican stepping forward into that seat. A slim possibility, I will say, with a Democratic-led state, but definitely a possibility. You know, what does this do for politics in California? I wonder how this is going to affect politics moving forward.
Yeah, so I think it depends what happens. If Governor Newsom defeats the recall, if there's a big margin that vote no on the recall, then I'm not sure it does that much more other than to disincentivize recall proponents in the future. And I think it strengthens him going into his 2022 reelection. Now, if Governor Newsom is recalled, then there's this enormous ripple effect. I think it really emboldens recall efforts, maybe even throughout the country, where they say, look, if it can happen in California, then it can happen somewhere else. And of course, California looks a bit different. That we have a Republican governor. Now, we still have Democrats who dominate 2/3 of the legislature, meaning we have a veto-proof supermajority in both houses of the legislature in California. So the governor can't change everything overnight, but it's still a powerful position. I think we have to, in terms of what does this mean for California? What does this mean for the nation? We have to see a little bit whether or not Governor Newsom is recalled and how big the margin is.
Right, exactly. And, we'd be remiss to not bring up the fact of just logistics of voting. We spoke so many times during the 2020 election about, mail-in voting, in-person voting, how that affects turnout. Turnout was a huge question during this recall election. We saw very late Newsom coming out and from heavy hitters, Barack Obama, one being one of them, coming out and saying, you need to come out and vote, because they were nervous about people not even turning out for this election. How do you think that is going to affect the results that we get tonight?
So Governor Newsom's biggest weakness has always been apathy or lack of turnout. Now, just based on the registration numbers in California, Democrats have about a 2-to-1 advantage against Republicans. And if people show up in anywhere near the numbers that reflect their percentage of the electorate, then Governor Newsom will continue to be our governor and this recall effort will be defeated. But Governor Newsom, I think, has spent much of this election, frankly, correctly, saying it's not really a question of whether or not you want to recall me, but recognizing it's a question of whether or not you're going to mail in that ballot that was sent to you or show up to the polls. And again, I think for Democrats, the biggest potential weakness was this idea of, oh, there's no way that recall effort's going to pass. Let's not even worry about it. And, we don't even have to mail in our ballot. For Governor Newsom, I think two things happened that changed that, potential weakness. One is that there was a poll that showed that this was a dead heat. And I think that really energized a lot of Democrats to say, oh my gosh, we need to get to the polls. And two, Larry Elder, who is the Republican frontrunner and has espoused views that are frankly just out of step with the majority of the electorate in California. And Governor Newsom was able to show this is not abstract. Here's the person who would replace me. And are you comfortable with the things that he's saying and the views that he has? And I think both of those things really brought up the Democratic base.
With that being said, it's a really tough question to answer, I know, always for every election, but could we possibly be getting some pretty substantial results tonight?
I think we will, because there was so much vote by mail, because in California, we made the decision that every eligible voter would automatically get a ballot. Now, we know that more Democrats, we think, voted by mail and more Republicans will vote today in person. So what I think people should expect is that things will look really good for Governor Newsom in the beginning of the night, and then they'll start to look slightly worse. The question is, will it, kind of go down like this, or will it just be a cliff that drops off once you start counting the same day votes?
Regardless of what happens, Jessica, I just think this was such an interesting predicament in California with the recall vote. There was millions of signatures on this petition to recall him. So I think that brings into question a lot of things about California, how everything was handled during the pandemic. And I know that's what the opposite side is saying right now. Republicans are saying that, Democrats obviously very passionate about who's going to be in that position of office. We heard from President Biden yesterday coming out and campaigning for Governor Newsom out in Long Beach, joined by Kamala Harris. So this is going to be interesting tonight.
Yeah, it is interesting. And the fact that, you mentioned that briefly before, that you have basically all the marquee players, all the big names from the Democratic Party showing up, shows that everybody recognizes if there isn't voter turnout, Governor Newsom is in trouble. And look, obviously Governor Newsom angered, a certain percentage of his constituents. And I think there were a lot of things that were a perfect storm. There was the judge who said you get more time to gather the signatures. There was Governor Newsom, I think it might have been that same week, having this incredibly luxurious dinner, kind of half outdoors, half inside, with people who are clearly not members of his household, while he's telling people, you need to sacrifice, you need to shelter in place, you really need to stay home. And for people in California, not everybody, but for some people in California, there's a feeling that Governor Newsom is an elitist, or he doesn't quote unquote feel your pain. And that image of him at the French Laundry was just so harmful for his reputation. And, I don't know that a dinner has ever been that politically expensive before.
Right.
We just have a lot of things converge.
So biggest priority is focusing in on tonight, but I'm curious what your thoughts are for the next election, how this is going to affect the next election.
So the thing that I'm looking for in terms of the next election is that you already see some of the opponents, some of the people who are running against Governor Newsom, for lack of a better term, saying that there's voter fraud. And I'm going to look to see, and again, not one vote has been recorded yet, so there's no way that we have evidence of voter fraud. I'm looking to see how much of a pattern that is, not just in California, but nationwide.
Okay. All right. Might be a rerun of 2020. Jessica Levinson, our election law expert. Thanks for joining us here on the show.